Hello, I'm Senator Alison Clarkson, and along with,
Hi, I'm Senator Becca White.
And hello, I'm Senator Joe Major.
and we comprise the Windsor County District team in the Vermont State Senate. We are your senators if you live anywhere from Thetford down to Springfield, west to Weston, and up to Bethel. And we are honored to represent you and enjoy our work enormously. Today, we'd like to update you a bit, fairly high level, on what we accomplished in this 2025 legislative session. It was a fairly challenging session for all of us for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, we had a number of new members, so people were orienting themselves to the process, to the building, and to our work. Second, it was really our first budgeting year, and our primary job as legislators is to pass the state budget, which finances the action and the departments and agencies of state government. And this year was the first year in 5 years that we were really budgeting without any ARPA money, the American Rescue Plan money, or the COVID money from the feds. That put huge pressure on us to do a lot for less, because Vermonters have come to expect a lot because we've had a lot of money. And the third challenge we faced as we entered the session was working with a federal government that was not really a partner for our work. First time in my 21 years of serving in the legislature where I felt that the federal government was not there to support the state governments. And so we had to act in many ways defensively, and we are continuing to respond in that fashion because the federal government is really pulling the rug out from under so many of our programs and so much of our funding, which we rely on. A third, Vermont has a budget of $9 billion. A third of that budget is federal money. And so we are very vulnerable, and most smaller states are vulnerable because of the reliance on federal money. Just an example, the Department of Labor is 90% financed by federal money. So going into this session was really a challenge. I represent you and serve you as chair of Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs, and in the afternoon with Becca on Senate Government Operations. And I'll talk about some of our work after everybody else gets a chance to chat, but I just want to tee up one of our biggest priorities of the session were housing, education, finance, and healthcare. And I'd just like to do a big over picture on the education bill because I know a lot of you are very concerned. We went in with a priority of lowering everybody's education property tax. We came out with a transformation bill that was much bigger than any of us had expected that we were going to be dealing with. And it was a bill that many of us were not very happy with. We did, however, lower your education property taxes. The statewide rate only rose 1.1%, as opposed to 30% last year here in Woodstock. So we did a big thing in that. Unfortunately, we had to use all our reserves to buy that property tax rate down, which leaves us with no money for next year to do the same thing. So we're going to have to figure out next year, as we transform our system so that we will save money down the line, we're going to have to figure out next year how we actually decrease our property taxes, which are rising for a variety of reasons, chief among them healthcare and several other things. So we did increase our education property tax rate only by 1.1%. We also put in play a redistricting, looking at how we might redistrict the state. And that committee, that task force, is actively working now, and you can access it on YouTube and watch their work as we go forward. But I'm going to, on that note, pass it to Becca.
There we go. Well, thanks, Allison. You know, as I appreciate all the work you did with being the chair of Senate Economic Development, and you noted that I'm on GovOps with you in the afternoon. In the morning, I'm on transportation. So we didn't talk about a lot with transportation before we dove into this, but I did just want to note that there is a lot of the federal funding that you noticed, or that you noted, being impacted. Yeah. So if that's an issue for you and you like your roads and bridges, well, that's taken a hit. But
You're vice chair.
Yeah, I'm vice chair of transportation. And I was going to cover a little bit more about the education reform side of things. Obviously, all three of us voted against a bill you may have heard of, H454. That's what Senator Clarkson was referencing with the tax reduction that you can expect in your property taxes. I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on it other than just to reiterate that there were some cost drivers outside of education that led to the increase in your property tax bill. And I think our big win of this session was actually, in a way, indirectly helping to resolve the property tax issue by focusing on healthcare cost reduction and addressing the housing challenges that we have in the state, which is growing our inflation. So just one other point on that bill, and then I will pass the torch to you, Joe. And that's that when we were working on the education bill, one of the key components to not just shaking up our education system, but shaking up our tax system was addressing, for me, second homeowners. And are we actually having folks who live in Vermont, not as a full-time resident, paying a reasonable amount of money to fund our education? And we don't have a system right now that breaks out the categories of property ownership. Many states do, like Hawaii, for example, has, to my understanding, over 9 different categories. But we did some work this session in H454 that will move us towards being able to address, I think, that disparity that Vermonters feel when second homeowners or non-homestead tax folks are maybe having more of a break than they as full-time residents have.
Yes.
So I just say that, and then Joe, you're across the hall from us in the afternoon.
Yes, on institutions in the afternoon, and I'm also the vice chair of the Agriculture Committee, which agriculture in Vermont has taken a hit on several levels because of what Senator Clarkson had said from the federal government. And one of it is the immigration part of it, and the housing part of it, which unfortunately has decimated our farmers, and they're having to mitigate that. I will also say, as far as the education bill, and like both Alison and Becca had said, we voted against it for several reasons. One, and this was what I found was the main reason, is we didn't see the significant cost reduction that we started this process in the beginning. And so now there are several off-ramps to this bill that you will see in the coming months. But the most important part of this is the redistricting. And if you talk to the superintendents, particularly in Windsor County, they were against this bill. And a lot of superintendents are saying, how is this going to work? Is this going to lose jobs when we consolidate many of our schools? Are you going to consolidate some of the schools, our elementary schools, which will be devastating to our young people here in Windsor County and throughout the state? And finally, we haven't even talked about transportation. When you do consolidate, will that add to the cost of our education? So there are many questions going into this process, and so hopefully, and we don't want to touch on so much of it because there's so much unknown, but we really want to make sure that we make the right decision, not only for the state of Vermont, but for Windsor County.
Yeah, none of us were on education.
Yes.
So that's what, dang, Windsor County. But I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I just would like to add one final thought on that. I think we all want to continue to have the best possible education. This educating our young people is like our top workforce development investment. I think we all appreciate with our the demographics in the state are aging, and we have fewer and fewer young people. When I entered the legislature, we had 120,000 kids in our school system, in our public school system. We now have about just under 80. For us to continue to offer high quality, lots of science options and lots of language options and lots of music options at school and lots of sports options, we are going to have to regionalize because you need a critical mass in order to justify the number of offerings that we have in our school. We all recognize that we're going to have to regionalize in large ways. I don't think anyone's interested in regionalizing our elementary schools.
Yeah.
I think that would only be for middle and high schools, and that's the only additional thing
No,
I'd
it's
say.
a really good point.
For us to maintain the quality of the education we want to offer, we're going to have to regionalize because we can't continue to offer the same stuff with fewer and fewer kids.
And I think we're all very involved moving forward with the process. So if folks had anything or they wanted to make notes, I think we're really open to that. But I did want to talk a little bit. There's two bills, kind of two topics I wanted to just quickly cover because I think we're probably
housing. I just want to make sure we do a little bit of housing.
I want to make sure we get to all. There was a lot that we did, so we were trying to condense it so you were focused up and knew the big bullet points. But one bill I want to talk about was S27, which is the medical debt relief bill, which leveraged a very lower amount of money for about $100 million of medical debt relief and forgiveness for Vermonters. So that's a big thing, using money from the Treasurer's Office. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about immigration. So obviously we're at the state level. We are not federal Congress people. We don't control what immigration and custom enforcement does. We don't, which is colloquially known as ICE. We don't control the immigration status of different Vermonters. But in our understanding of the tactics that ICE has used, the way that it has really ripped apart communities, and has also, as Senator Major pointed out, had deep impacts on our workforce in the agriculture sector. Your senators really felt that we should move forward with something, whatever we could do. So a couple of those bills that we worked on this session to help make immigration issues things that we could resolve were S44, which limits the ability of ICE to be deputizing local law enforcement. It adds an additional layer where even during an emergency, a national emergency, the governor still has to sign off on that, which, hey, this week's news, I mean, kind of relevant with our governor choosing not to have the National Guard work with ICE in certain things. So very relevant. The other two were related to the Office of New Americans and supporting within the housing bill some protections for those who are not green card holding folks, but have want to live and reside in our state and have immigration statuses like work visas, which you did a lot of,
And might want to rent an apartment.
Yeah, God forbid you want to.
I will say one thing, and you talked about housing and to a certain extent, and I wasn't very happy with the governor when he eliminated the hotel motel voucher program, because that then made the municipalities have to begin to deal with unhoused individuals. And so how are they going to go forward with that, whether it is cleanup, and some unhoused are dealing with the opioid crisis. I know in Hartford it has become just an incredible epidemic, and now they're having to deal with that. So it's pushed down some of that money towards the municipalities. So it is, but on a brighter side, Senator Clarkson did tremendous work on housing, and and this is called teeing it up.
Yeah.
Because she got a law passed, and I'm going to give it to her because she is housing obviously is one of the main issues that we had to deal with, and she went quite far in trying to solve that issue.
Yeah, even avoided maybe some rehearsal dinners and
We, as you all know, are in a housing crisis. It's exacerbated by our homeless challenge that we face, but we have not been building new housing in Vermont significantly since the 80s. And it is now estimated by the Vermont Futures Project that Vermont needs to be building 7,500 units a year, which is just mind-boggling because we we have, with the COVID money, we've been able to build between 2,000 and 3,000 units a year. So, I mean, we aren't even halfway there.
Yeah, that was the biggest. Yeah.
And we don't have the COVID money. So we did three sort of big things. We continued to fund the very popular Vermont Housing Infrastructure Program, Improvement Program, VHIP, which helps match money if you want to build an accessory dwelling unit on your house. If you're living alone and you have a big house and you'd like to create an additional unit, you are able to access matching money to build that, just as you are to take a vacant, blighted, or non-code compliant house, building, any building, and turn it into housing. You have VHIP to match money for that. We also created the Vermont Infrastructure Sustainability Fund with the Vermont Bond Bank that will, we seeded it with less money than we wanted, but we had less money than we hoped. But we seeded it with $7.5 million, and that enables municipalities to bond for infrastructure that they may need for housing. And then finally, and most importantly, we created the CHIP program, which is the Community Housing Infrastructure Program, which is based on TIF. It's an infrastructure financing mechanism, but it's much more flexible and for smaller communities. So it is a new housing program that we will hope will really enable smaller communities to build smaller pieces of infrastructure that enable them to build more housing. So let's look at Reading, a small town in our neck of the woods. Reading has been very interested in building more housing, and it could, for example, bond to put in a bigger septic tank or a bigger well to deal with a structure that could be renovated and put in 5 to 20 housing units. Some smaller units will be enabled through this CHIP program, and it will finance and hopefully stimulate housing development in all corners of our state. This is up to $2 billion of infrastructure financing that will be available in the next few years. At the moment, the Vermont Economic Progress Council is creating the rules that will govern the CHIP program. So we created the CHIP program, and we will be passing and affirming those rules that they will have for us by November. The measures in CHIP allow for all types of housing and mixed-use developments. It's not just for affordable housing. It's really designed because we need all types of housing, not just affordable housing. And we've financed affordable housing in lots of major ways through the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. Tens of millions of dollars we've invested this year in affordable housing. This is really designed to enable all housing.
Workforce housing, everything.
Everything.
Well, you spent a lot of time on that, and I just want to say thank you, because I think it really helped make sure that our communities were heard, because it's not just Hartford, it's not just Springfield, it's Reading, it's Chester. So I think we're probably close to our time on our ability to share legislative updates. So I don't know if we have wrap-up thoughts.
I had a wrap-up thought that was a big bill that you guys passed, which was the Kids Code. Which, just briefly, I think people are interested in, and also the self-free schools.
Self-free schools.
I think people
if you're watching us on Instagram, here's how you.
Well, one thing, obviously, there are nefarious forces on the internet that take advantage of kids, and this Kids Code bill enables basically stopping those forces from take advantage of a kids, and and it kind of leads into schools and what the no cell phones in schools.
Yeah, we had a lot of work done this year on those topics, because I think we've heard from constituents that social media and kind of the addiction to your device has affected our children. So we don't have, now we're moving forward with the ban. So thank you for your work on that.
Yeah, thank you a lot on that, because that really gets at the algorithms that create the addictive patterns and the constant scrolling.
You don't doom scroll, so you don't do it.
I don't. But I'm sure others do.
Well,
but it really gets at and does not allow for those kind of addictive algorithms to be used on specific apps
Yeah,
for kids.
2 to 4 a.m. or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and-
I appreciate all the work that you did on that, and maybe we just say fond hope to see you again to folks
Yeah,
watching.
and thank you
but-
so much. And we're hoping to do this on a regular basis. We
Yeah.
might try and do this on specific topics in
Yeah,
the next
'cause
little
this was
bit,
a lot of topics.
Yes.
because we passed a lot of good
Yeah.
stuff this year.
We have-
and we even did a trails bill that allows
Oh, we
our
did have legal
towns
trails.
to finally delegate authority to maintain our public trail system.
Legal trails.
I mean, so everything, everything matters to all of you. So thank you. We look forward to hearing from you, and we look forward to doing more of these programs. Thank you very much, and goodbye from your Windsor District team.
Thank you.
Thank you.